So I'm sure I have shown a simply supported beam. You see it is hinged at one end and there is a roller support on the other end. That's the way you have defined a simply supported beam. And you have applied movement, bending on a external movement on left hand. Now you want to solve. So I have drawn free body diagram. I want to find the reactions. So there is a hinge support, so there will be only support reactions in x and y direction, forces. And there is a roller support, there is a force in y direction. I have shown the coordinate system like this. So force balance, Ax, there is only one force in x direction, Ax. So it goes to 0. Force balance in y direction, Ay plus By is equal to 0. So Ay is equal to minus By. Now I take movement about point A. So sigma mz about point A. Ax and Ay will not contribute as they pass through point A. So m naught is an external movement. So it is counterclockwise here. So it is positive plus movement caused by By. You see it is also counterclockwise about point A. So By into L, it will be equal to 0. So it gives you By is equal to minus m naught by L. So you get Ay as m naught by L. It is the opposite sign. So now you have the reactions. So you have calculated all the reactions. Now you want to find movement at this cross section at a distance x from point A. So you draw a free body diagram of the left part. So I have shown the external movement, support reactions. The support reaction at point A given by this. At this point, at this cross section, I show internal forces represented by shear force V and a movement M. The way I have selected them, they corresponding to positive value of shear force and positive value of bending moment. Now you use static sign convention and do force balance and movement balance and find V and M. So if you do force balance, force is V is positive plus this M naught is also counterclockwise, so positive, and this M, sorry, I am doing force balance. So I have to just take the vertical forces. So V plus M naught by L is equal to 0. I get V as a minus M naught by L. Now I take movement about the right side. So what will happen? V will not contribute to any movement as V is passing through the right side. M naught is counterclockwise, so positive. This M is also counterclockwise, so positive. And this M force at the reaction at the left end will cause a clockwise movement about the right side. So minus m naught by L, this distance is x into x. So you get movement m. M is equal to m naught 1 minus x by L. This is your bending moment at the right cross section. So you see your shear force distribution doesn't depend on position. So you get minus m naught by L throughout the beam. And bending moment at x is equal to 0, you get minus m naught. At x is equal to L, you get 0. This is the way your bending moment distribution is. Also, if you look at this, you see your external movement is counterclockwise here. And since the area normal is negative, bending moment becomes minus m naught. And here there is no external movement. So bending moment here is 0. Only at internal cross sections you have to find internal forces so as to find shear force and bending moment. At the boundaries, whatever is externally applied is there. Okay. Now you can find the deflection curve. This is your equation for finding deflection curve. So EI d square y by dx square equal to bending moment. Bending moment distribution is given by this equation. So you integrate, second integration. Now what are the boundary conditions? It's a simply supported beam. So you get Deflection at both the ends are zero. You use that. It's a second order differential equation, so you need only two boundary conditions to find the constant C and D. So first boundary condition gives you D is equal to zero. Second boundary condition gives you value of C. So you get your deflection curve. So this is your deflection curve. So you could have also found bending moment from using the right hand side. Like you started from the left hand side and found the bending moment. Forget it. Now suppose you are applying movement on both the sides. This we have already done. So by superposition also you can find the answer. You have calculated the left hand side or leave it out. Now we go to buckling. Buckling is a different stuff altogether. In buck, actually, when the earlier structures were designed, you see the bridges earlier, they used to have arc shape. So they were concrete bridges. So concrete is strong in compression and it is weak in tension. If you find the tensile strength of concrete and you find the compressive strength, you will find that rocks have very high compressive strength while they are weak in tension. Compressive strength may be 1,000 times more than tensile strength. You see cast iron, its compressive strength is probably 3 times more than the tensile strength. So what happens in brittle materials? There is no plastic deformation. So any crack stays sharp under loading and it keeps growing. While in ductile materials, crack gets blunted. And because of blunting, it is difficult to propagate it. So they have high tensile strength. During compression, what happens? Compressive forces close the crack. So crack is not active. Crack will be active only when there is a opening stress, something like a tensile stress. So that's for this reason, brittle materials are strong in compression because their cracks are not active. But when you apply tensile load, those cracks become actively loaded and they start growing. And because there is no plastic deformation, they stay active and their propagation is faster. While in ductile materials, they blunt out and it is difficult to propagate them. So ductile materials have good tensile strength compared to brittle materials. Now in buckling, now what was the problem with steel? Steel was a good material, so you could design bridges with smaller cross sections. You see, if you want to design a concrete column, you need a large cross section to gain the same strength. To support the same load, you need a large cross section, while steel has very high tensile strength. But what was the problem with the steel? When you put a compressive load, then steel is seen to deform, to fail elastically. It doesn't fail because of material failure, it fails because of large deformations. So it is called an elastic failure. So there is this concept of buckling. Suppose you apply a vertical load onto this column, you take a long column, beam. So you have applied load axially to it. Now it is a column. So this column, if its length increases, then it can tends to become unstable after a certain load. You keep increasing the load. You see what kind of deformation do you expect if you put a axial load? Anybody? Dhruv? Suppose you put an axial load, what kind of a deformation you expect? You expect it to barrel out. It will have a barrel shape. This kind of a thing you apply load. So what is happening? There is friction at the bottom. So there is friction at the top. So these two surfaces will not expand to the same extent as the center. Under compressive load, what will happen? Due to transverse deformation, there will be transverse stretching. You are applying a vertical load, so there is a compressive stress. In the perpendicular directions, the material will tend to expand. So you will have a barrel kind of deformation of the column. But what happens is material doesn't suffer that barrel kind of deformation. So it should actually get crushed. As you apply a vertical compressive load, the material should get crushed vertically down. But that does not happen. What happens is because of some imperfections, it tends to buckle. It goes in the other direction. You just take a steel ruler and apply a vertical load. You will find that it deforms, it bends. I will show you in the diagrams. So, so you are applying a load like this. Here you are supported. So it will tend to go like this or grow like this. So it is not going vertically down that it gets reduced in contract in length. It will, this is called a buckling failure. So material may stay elastic, but deformation is large. Okay. So it becomes useless. Your structure collapses. This is also called collapse. Now I am just showing you the same thing. This is a, here it is hinged, this column, and here you have given it a roller support. If you apply a, there is an eccentricity in this load, you have applied an eccentric load, then how is it analyzed? So you see, so this eccentric load, you can always apply a equilibrated load. Like I have applied an equilibrated system of forces here, P downwards and P upwards, applied at the middle surface. This is the middle surface. So I applied that. So these two, this upper P and this eccentric P, they are making a couple. So this couple is P into E. You see, this is a clockwise couple here. So this eccentric P you can replace by a compressive P and a couple P into E. Okay. E is the eccentricity. So now there is a movement as well as a downward force. Now this is like a bending movement. And the way I have shown my coordinate system, X is here, Y is here. Now the problem I can see here is if you go from X to Y, your Z should be coming outward towards you. While in this diagram it has been shown going inwards. So we will see it will create some issues. Now if you just do force balance, this now there is a support here, so there will be a horizontal force. There is roller support, so there is a horizontal force By. There is a hinge, so there is a force Ay and a vertical force. Now Ay plus By has to be equal to 0 for force balance in x direction, in y direction, sorry, here. So Ay is equal to minus By. Vertically, force P has to equilibrate against this force, so this force has to be P, caused by the support. If you take movement about point A, this point, then what is the movement about point A? You are doing force balance. This is a clockwise movement, so this is there as such minus PE, and this movement, this force By causes a movement clockwise about point A, minus By into L is equal to 0. So By is equal to minus PE by L. So Ay will be PE by L. So issue I see is that this coordinate system can create a problem. We will see. Any problem till now?
No, sir.
Okay. So I have shown it here. This is PEYL. So I have shown the whatever are the reactions. So here I just calculated these reactions AY, BY. So this is my free body diagram for the full column. Now if I take a section here and I want to find shear force and bending moment here. So what will happen? So I show here positive direction of shear force and bending moment. So my positive x direction is this. So shear force positive should be like this and bending moment like this. Okay. Okay. Just assume this z is pointing towards you instead of going into the plane. I think everything else is okay. So V minus I'm doing force balance. V minus P by L is equal to 0. So I get V. Movement about lower surface, I find movement about this point. Gives you this. You get M is this. So deflection of column causes bending moment from force P. You see, so you get a bending moment distribution P into 1 minus X by L. Any problem with this? This is the bending moment M minus P clockwise movement applied from the top. This force P by L is causing a counterclockwise movement. So you get this bending moment. Now suppose there is a deflection of the column. I told you this column is going to deflect like this or in the other direction. So you see there is a deflection of the central surface or centroidal surface from the vertical line given by y. When that is happening, this force in the middle, you see there was a force P in the middle. Whatever you did till now was from the bending moment PE. But now, because of the deflection of the beam of the column, this force P and this P, they are also going to cause a movement. So now I am calculating the contribution of P also. So mz is equal to m minus P plus, this is same as before. Now you see these two together, they are creating a couple. You see, you have taken a movement about this point. So this force is going to cause a counterclockwise movement about this cross section. So that is plus Py. So total bending movement is not just this much. You have got another term minus Py. Can you see this?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, this PE we are applying externally, it's the external moment which we are applying.
Speak again.
सर जो PE है वो एक्सटर्नल मोमेंट है जो हम अप्लाई कर रहे हैं.
Okay, good question. You see, this force was not axial. This force P was offset.
Yes, sir.
It was eccentric. Had the force been exactly in the middle, then there would not have been any bending moment from this force. Since it is axial, it is slightly shifted. You can replace this force, shifted force, by a vertical force at the middle plus a movement.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So first we use the movement. First we found the effect of the movement and found the bending moment. Then I said that because the column is getting deflected, it is bending. So now this actual central force P is also causing a bending moment. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So this bending moment will be P into Y. So that contribution is here. So your total bending moment at a cross section is, this is one is because of the eccentricity and this one is because of the bending. You see, this is something causing a feedback effect is there. Can you see that feedback effect? More it bends, more the will be the bending moment. Now bending moment is proportional to the deflection, P into I. So that is why buckling initiates. You- There will be a situation when there will be a critical value of P, which will cause large deflection, uncontrolled deflection. Because you see, deflection is feeding the bending moment. More the deflection, more the bending moment. The more it bends further, there will be a drive to for further and further bending. Can you see this, Lavish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is the deflection curve? This term is equal to the bending moment. So that is what we have used. So first, for the first time, we ignore this minus py. What do we get? You can find the deflection curve. So at x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0, x will. So you have used these situations and found your deflection curve. Now here we have used the other term also. This minus py we can take to the right hand side. Okay. Look, till now our equations were this. Now once we take it to the left hand, now you see this is a differential equation for buckling. This is because of the eccentricity of the load, right hand side. Now this is an ordinary differential equation with constant coefficients. You have done ordinary differential equations in first year.
Yes, sir.
So these are constant coefficients. P is a constant, EI is a constant. So first we solve the homogeneous differential equation, meaning right hand side we take as 0. Choose y is equal to E lambda x as the solution. This is the way we handle ODE with constant coefficients. If you just put what will be dy by dx, lambda into E lambda x, what will be second derivative, lambda square E lambda x. So we are just putting them. This is what you get. So this is called a characteristic equation. E lambda x you can divide out and you get lambda square plus p by ei is equal to 0. So you see lambda is equal to plus minus iota root p by ei. So what is y high? Homogeneous. You say a prime, you take the first root, e iota. So one solution is e iota root p by ex, another is minus iota root p by ex. So this becomes your general solution. So when you have got this iota and minus iota x, so it looks like a sinusoidal function. So it will be a cos kx plus b sin kx, where k is the value root p by ei. Now, what is the particular solution for this differential equation? You see, this is the right hand side term is not 0. So we use a now you see it is some linear function. X, others are constant. So you can choose a particular solution as Cx plus D. So you go back to your books in mathematics. This is the way you try to find a general solution for the differential equation. Now, if you put this in the differential equation, you will be able to get constant C and T. So you see, you are equating linear term, coefficient of the linear term with the coefficient of the linear term on the left hand side, and it constants with constants. So this is what you get. So you get a particular solution like this. So your general solution becomes y is equal to this plus this particular solution. Now you have to still find constants a and b. So you use your boundary conditions at x equal to 0, y is 0, x equal to L, y is equal to 0. So you put them and you will be able to find your a and b. So you'll see your a and b look like this. So y is equal to this value. This is the expression you get for y. Now you see this expressions you are having 10 KL in the denominator. You see these terms. These are all x, you know, x direction is that longitudinal direction. Cos kx, you see it is limited between +1 and -1. Only 10 KL is a problem. If 10 KL becomes 0, this term will become infinite. So that is what you are looking for. When does y become large? Y is your deflection. So y tends to infinity when 10 KL is equal to 0. So KL is equal to, when will KL 10 KL will be 0? When KL is equal to n pi, or K is equal to n pi by L. K was root P by EI, you use that. So root P by EI is equal to n pi by L. Okay. So what becomes your load? Load is equal to n square pi square by L square EI. So pi square EI by L square. What is the minimum value of load? If you put n is equal to 1, this is the minimum value. If you put n is equal to 2, your value will be 4 times. So this load is called critical load. Critical load is a load at which your deflection becomes infinite. So what happens? If your load is, this is your P critical. At P critical, till the load is P critical, you will have zero deflection. The deflection in this direction, you see your column deflects. It becomes like this. It becomes like this when this is a fixed end. Now since you have got hinged end, they support like this, so it is going to bend like this. Can go like this also, or like this. So below critical load, you will find it is not deflecting at all in this direction. But after critical load, at critical load, you cannot find what is the value of deflection. It is an unknown amount of deflection. This is your deflection. So you say this is a failure situation. Your deflection will keep on increasing once the value of applied load becomes equal to this critical load. So this critical load is called P critical or buckling load. Or this is also called crippling load or Euler's crippling load. So Euler solved this problem for the first time. So in beam, it was a typical problem that beam is strong in tension, but it tends to fail in compression. You see your bridges. In bridges, there will be a upper part of the bridge. Suppose you have applied this is a bridge. You will be applying load like this. So what will happen? It will deform like this. So which part will be in tension? Kevalish, where you will find tension.
In the bottom part.
So this is tension, this is compression. So what is seen is upper members, they can fail in buckling because they are under compressive load. So some buckling failure can be seen there. So buckling was a very typical problem in bridges made of steel. So you have to design proper cross section, different kind of a cross section for the compressive part. So you look at to these issues where if you were suppose you are going doing any design, so there will be something called slenderness ratio. So what will that slenderness ratio will depend on? Length of the column upon area of the cross section. If you have a very large length, if this is like 100, so that 100 value is the critical value. You will not like to design a long column. If that is happening, you will change the cross section. So such stuff you will see when you are going for designing against buckling. Even screw jacks, you see where very large load is applied. Though even your column doesn't look very long, we have to check it against buckling failure, even in a screw jack. You have a screw and a large load is there. So the length should not be, you have to choose a cross section that doesn't fail in buckling. Okay. It will not fail due to yield stress, that compressive yield stress is reached. It may fail in buckling. So that buckling is an important failure mode, and often this failure is seen. So there are two types of failure. One is because of yielding, another is because of buckling. Now, what we had here, there was some contribution because of eccentricity of the load also. So your deformation will not be zero if there is an eccentricity. So your deformation will start straight away from the initial point because there was already a movement applied. So there will be a vertical, there will be a sideways deflection. So there are different curves. If eccentricity is zero, you have a vertical diagram, then horizontal diagram. If there is some eccentricity, you may have increasing eccentricity will have this kind of a situation. So there are different curves. You check out with your Python book, it must be showing. Or you look at Timoshenko Gare. Okay. Now buckling also depends on the way the end conditions are. End conditions. You see, I had taken an end condition. So this is known as pin end condition. So what you could have done, something like this. The load is applied, so it tends to slide, but deflection is zero at these ends. So this is kind of pin support, and there is a fixed free. What is fixed free? This end is fixed, and this end is free. So this is known as fixed free boundary conditions, and you are applying a load. So how will the deflection look like? This will be the kind of deflection. So if you just see this deflection, if it is looking like this, and this will go like this if you just take a reflection of it. Now you see this deformation mode is similar to this deformation mode. So these two modes are looking similar. So this is a concept of effective length. You see, because of this roller support here, it prevented some kind of a buckling. It made buckling slightly more difficult compared to here. Here it is only held at one end, other end is free. So it becomes more easy for it to buckle. So here you see effective length is twice the length of this column when you had a pin support. You had a pin support, so your length was whatever was your critical length here, whatever expression you have, load upon cross section area. Suppose you say 100 is the value. This is the limiting value you won't like to cross. You won't like to make a column greater than this. Okay. So here, this is the situation. You will go for a value of L critical will be twice, sorry, whatever is the L for pin situation, you will make it divide by factor of 2. So you have to modify your formulas accordingly. And you can get the differential equation for it. For example, now you have taken a beam column like this, and you have applied a force P like this. So how it deflects? It deflects like this. So now your force P is here. So if you draw a free body diagram, this is a P. You have to choose a coordinate system. So this is I choose my coordinate system like this, X, Y like this, Z like this. So what is the downward force here? Force at the support. There is a vertical force P to balance it. And these two together are making a movement. It's a clockwise movement. So support has to cause a counterclockwise movement for movement equilibrium. So this counterclockwise movement is P into Y. Kevalish, are you seeing it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I have found, I have found the movement from the support and the externally applied movement. Now, what is my target? I want to find bending moment at a cross section. So this is my position X from this end. So now okay, it can be done this way. So this is forces, this is P, and now this is my positive phase. So I will take my shear force as V. Positive shear force is this in the positive Y direction, and my counterclockwise movement will be positive. So this is my counterclockwise movement. So this is a counterclockwise movement. Okay. So this I call M. Oh. So this is my maximum deflection. Now this is your maximum deflection. Okay. And this is your Y at this position X. So what is the movement? So this was your center line. This was your delta, and this is your deflection y. So this, if you do force balance, then v is equal to 0. There is no force in x direction. Now there will be a force in y direction here, P, for vertical equilibrium. And if you take movement about this point, then these two are making a couple, and this is making a movement. It is a counterclock. It is a clockwise movement. So what is the value? P into delta minus y. Since it is a clockwise movement, it is the minus sign. And this bend movement you have applied here, bending movement is positive. Static sign convention wise, and it is counterclockwise. Plus m is equal to 0. It implies m is equal to P delta minus y. Cavalish, is it all right? Any problem do you see?
Yes, sir, it's okay.
It's okay. So now what is our equation? Deflection curve. EI d square y by dx square is equal to m, which is P into delta minus y. So what is our differential equation? So this is the deflection equation we get. Now we have to solve it. So first we solve the homogeneous equation. So we say y is equal to E lambda x. So lambda square EI plus P is equal to 0. So lambda is equal to minus P by EI square root plus minus so your y becomes a cos kx plus b sin kx. K is equal to root p by ei. Any problem? Something
No,
like
sir.
we did before. Now what is our particular solution? This is our homogeneous solution. What is our particular solution? It is p delta. So particular solution will be some constant. This is a p delta is a constant. So if we use this particular solution into this equation, what do we get? Second derivative is 0. So we get P into A is equal to P delta. So A is equal to delta. So you get plus delta. Okay. Now what are our boundary conditions? X is equal to 0. Y is equal to 0. We have taken our coordinate system. X, Y. And this is the way our column was deflecting. So at this position, our Y was 0. So what do you get? Put X equal to 0. This term goes to 0. A plus delta is equal to 0. Implies A is equal to minus delta. Okay. Now our slope is 0 at x equal to 0. So this implies minus A into k sine kx plus b into k cos kx is equal to 0 at x is equal to 0. This is our slope. So put x equal to 0. This term is 0.
pk is equal to 0.
So b is equal to 0. So what we get our solution? Y is equal to delta into 1 minus cos kx. Any problem do you see?
Clear, sir.
Delta into 1 minus cos kx. Okay. So this is what I'm getting. These Tata people are also nasty. Earlier I was having 300 Mbps. They asked for 1 Gbps. I said 300 Mbps is enough. Now you see, everything has slowed down. Earlier it was sufficient for me. Now it looks I have made a mistake. So this is y is equal to delta minus. Okay. So this is my deflection curve. As at x equal to 0, this term is 1. I get delta is equal to 0. At x is equal to L. Sorry, I made some mistake. Okay, I want to find deflection at x is equal to L. At x is equal to L, my y is delta. This is what I had assumed. So if I just put that, delta is equal to delta into 1 minus cos kl. So I am getting 1 minus cos kl is equal to 1. So what is it? Cos kl is equal to 0. So when will cos kl will be 0? When kl is equal to?
So pi by 2.
Okay. KL is equal to n pi by 2. What was your K? K was root P by EI. K was P by root EI is equal to n pi by n pi by 2L. So P critical becomes EI into pi square by 4L square. I am putting n is equal to 1. So that gives you the minimum value of P critical. So you get this. So you see now you are getting a factor of 4 in the denominator. So the critical load is reduced by a factor of 4. So I had told you that this length, earlier what was your, for a pin column, what was your critical load? EI pi square by L square. So effective length is now twice L when you change the boundary conditions. Okay. And what is this n is equal to 2, 3 situation? So what you have to just see what is your cos KL. You have got something called cos. You look at this curve, y is equal to delta 1 minus cos kx. Now KL is equal to n pi by 2. So you here replace K as n pi by 2 L. So now your deflection curve is looking like okay. So you see, you change n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3. You will get different kind of deflection shapes. For example, this is 1 for n is equal to 1. If you take n is equal to 2, you may get a diffraction shape like this. So to check out. Okay. So you see there is some additional constraint you are putting here, and you will find your buckling load will reduce. Okay. So you have to just check it out. Sorry, it will increase. Suppose you put n is equal to 2. Now you see your buckling load is increasing. So buckling load is increasing only when you put additional constraints in the somewhere in the middle to support the column. Can you see what I'm saying? So that is happening because if your shape will change only when you introduce something else to support the column in the somewhere on its along the length. So I think class is over for today. So now we have to meet on Thursday and we have to wrap up the entire course.